This is my ranking of every Mario Party 3 minigame. Like always, it's purely my opinion and no one else's. And yes, concept still matters. Also, the Game Guy minigames will not be counted. That's all for the rules, so let's go! The worst Mario Party 3 minigame is a tie between Free-for-All, Stacked Deck, and Merry-Go-Chomp. Once again, these are two completely luck-based minigames. In Stacked Deck, the players take turns ground-pounding cards to flip them over. If they get a Toad, they're safe. If they get a Baby Bowser, they're out. And if they get a Boo, the player order will be shuffled, and the last player standing wins. In Merry-Go-Chomp, players must pick a colored section of a spinning platform to jump on, and hope the color they pick won't be the one to stop in front of the Chain Chomp. Any player the Chain Chomp does attack loses, and the last player standing wins. These minigames are actually in the exact same boat as Day at the Races and Bowser's Big Blast from Mario Party 2. There's no skill required whatsoever. You just pick something and hope for the best. But that's not all. There are also battle minigames, which means each player must wager a certain amount of their coins, and the better you do in the minigame, the more of those total coins you win back. So I dislike Stacked Deck and Merry-Go-Chomp for all the same reasons as Day at the Races and Bowser's Big Blast. They could have major effects on a board, with nothing to blame but stupid luck. To be frank, if these weren't battle minigames, they probably wouldn't be at the very bottom of the list, because they're not boring, so to speak, but if you're both a luck-based and battle minigame at the same time, you're pretty much doomed from the start. The 6-item minigames. In my opinion, you shouldn't have to play a minigame just to get an item. That's what shops and special spaces are for, and not to mention, they're all very short and solo, and I've made it clear before that short minigames aren't likely to stand out, and also, they're more fun when there are more players. The more the merrier, as I always say. A few of these minigames are a little fun, specifically popping balloons and swing and swipe, but the rest are either meh or bad, and not to mention, some of them involve luck, so these minigames never had a chance to begin with. I don't hate them per se, well, at least not all of them, but if they didn't exist, Mario Party 3 would still be the same game it is today. 58. Hide and Seek. The team players are on a stage with 4 stage props and must pick one to hide behind, while the lone player, after the curtain closes and reopens, must pick one of the props to drop, and if any team players were hiding behind that prop, they're out. If the lone player can oust all 3 team players in 3 rounds, he or she wins, but if even one team player is still standing after the 3rd round, the team wins. A luck-based one, how nice. And even disregarding that, it's just boring with an uninteresting concept. 57. Bowser Toss. Each player has a huge, Bowser thing, which they must swing around and throw. Speed and angle are both important here, and the player to throw their Bowser thingamabobber the furthest wins. In concept, this one's okay, I guess, but I've always been really bad at it. For some reason, I always find it hard to get just the right angle. It could just be me, but either way, this one's a no-go for me. 56. Picture Imperfect. At the beginning, a picture of a Mario character will be shown, and the players, each with their own blank template, must hit a block at the right time to give their model the correct facial features. The more correct features your model represents, the more points you'll score, and the highest scoring player at the end wins. The amount of times the block must be hit varies depending on the character pictured at the beginning, and timing the hit is pretty easy for the first few rolls, but from then on, it pretty much just becomes a game of luck. Basically, a worse version of Toad in the Box from Mario Party 2. 55. Slot Sync. Each player has their own spinning block, which they must hit at the right time to stop on the same icon as their partner. Teams get points each time they do so, and the team with the most points after time expires wins. This one takes good timing, which I normally love, but despite that, the block spins so fast it feels luck-based. Geez, how many Toad in the Box ripoffs are there? And, you know, I'm all for luck-based minigames. I love those things! 54. Spotlight Swim. The lone player swimming in a pool, and each team player has their own spotlight. If they can all shine their spotlight on the lone player at the same time within 30 seconds, they win, but if not, the lone player wins. For some reason, I've always found this one kind of broken in the lone player's favor. It could just be me, but even if it is, this minigame is pretty slow-paced and lacking in concepts. It's not god-awful, but it could be a lot better. 53. End of the line. Each player's riding their own train that'll pass through 3 split paths. They must choose either the left or right path for each one, hoping the one they pick leads to the next section. If they pick the wrong path, they'll fall off a cliff and have to start all over again. The first player to reach the end of the tracks wins. It does require good memory to some extent, since if you fall at any point, you'll have to remember which paths led where. Given how much I like games that test memory, this minigame's not as bad as other luck-based ones, but I still don't really like it. 52. MPIQ. This minigame is kinda stupid. Toad will ask the players questions, and the first one to buzz in gets to answer. If they give the right answer, they'll score a point, and the first player to score 3 points wins. However, what makes it stupid is the kinds of questions Toad asks. Some of them are stupidly easy, like what color is Wario's cap, what Mario Party game are you playing right now, etc. And others are really specific, like which dual map has been played on the most, what is the record in this minigame, etc. 51. Messy Memory. There's a shelf with a bunch of items, which the players have 3 seconds to memorize the order of before a bunch of Toads come and scramble them all up. Then they must put them all back in the right places. The more items with which they do so, the more points they'll score, and the player with the most points when time expires wins. Yes, I normally like memory testing games, but in this one, there's too much to memorize with too little time, so to me at least, it feels more like a game of luck than a game of memory. All this luck, it's so gross! 50. Crowd cover. There's a picture of a Mario series character over which several of said characters will be covering. The players have to guess the right shape, and if you do so, you win, but if you guess wrong, you lose. I don't think this one's bad, but it's not great either. I'd say it's passable at best. It's kind of short, and, well, that's it. I can't think of anything else to say. Some minigames just don't have much to them. 49. Motor Rooter. The players, each with their own hovercraft, are racing across a long tube full of amps and dash panels. The first player to reach the finish line wins. I know what you're thinking. I thought you liked racing games! Yes, I do, but in this one, it's hard to see what's ahead of you since you're moving so fast, and the tube has a lot of turns, inclines, and dips. And not to mention, when you're on the top, the turn controls don't invert, making maneuvering confusing. So racing game or not, this one's just eh. 48. Chip Shot Challenge. Do I even have to say anything here? You just play golf, that's it. Any player to get the ball in the hole wins, and if no one does, the player to get the closest wins. In terms of concept, this minigame isn't noteworthy, it's just regular golf. And even disregarding that, I've always found it hard to master the distance and power. It's not god-awful, but to be honest, I groan every time this minigame comes up. It might just be because I'm bad at it, but I can't help how I feel. 47. Waterworld. Each player has their own motorboat, which they must race across a short ovular track, and the first to complete 5 laps wins. Yes, you thought I liked racing games, but in this one, the controls feel slippery, for lack of a better word. If the controls were more smooth, I'm certain I'd like this minigame more, but would've, could've, should've. 46. Baby Bowser Broadside. There's a moving Baby Bowser standee, which the players, using cannons, must keep shooting at. Teams score 1 point for each hit, and the team with the most points when time expires wins. Are you thinking, I thought you liked shooting games? And yes, I do, but to be honest, this one's just kind of boring. Even though the target is mobile, it can't move around a lot, and I do like how you can move too and change your aim, but there are much better shooting minigames out there, trust me. 45. Silly Screws. The players are running across screws, which they must line up with the one next to it to advance. You do so by button mashing, but don't mash too fast or you'll miss and have to go back the other way. The first player to reach the finish line wins. I'll give credit where it's due. This is a really unique type of racing game with a clever concept, but like I've said before, I'm not really a fan of games where you must restrict your movement, and it's also kinda slow-paced. But in all honesty, it's not bad. I kinda like it. 44. Picking Panic. The teams must get cherries from Woody and drop them in their baskets. One teammate must pass cherries to the other, who must then drop them in the basket, all with good timing. Each cherry is worth 1 point, and the team with the most points when time expires wins. I do like how this one takes good timing, but even with that, it's a little simplistic and unimmersive, and maybe a tad boring too. And the concept, not really notable. 43. Eyesore. Each player has their own Mr. Eye, whom they must keep running around until he disappears. The player to eliminate their Mr. Eye first wins. But it's not quite that simple. Lava bubbles will keep raining down from above, and if you touch one, you'll get stunned. But this actually hurts the minigame more than it helps it, because you're in a pretty small room and they fall quite fast, which means they're hard to see coming. How is that fair? Honestly, if it wasn't for that, this minigame would surely be better, because it is pretty fun, and it also has an original concept. 42. Frigid Bridges. This one's kind of like Bumper Ball Maze from Mario Party 1, except replace the bumper ball with ice physics. Also throw in some cubes that you have to carry from your starting point to the middle, being careful for cheap sheeps and to not fall in the water. The first player to get all 3 of their cubes to the other side wins. In my opinion, these differences make this one much better than Bumper Ball Maze. And also, it's not ridiculously hard, just enough to be a good challenge. And racing games, what else do I have to say? 41. Stardust Battle. Here, you face the Millennium Star one-on-one. Stars will keep raining down, which you have to avoid, then grab and throw at the Millennium Star. If you can do so 9 times, you win, but if you get hit even once, you lose. While this is fun and epic, it's difficult. A bit too difficult, since you only have 1 life, which means you can't get hit even once. That's kind of harsh, and not to mention, the controls are a bit too rough. If not for these flaws, this one would certainly be better, but even as it is, it's good. And for Mario Party's first ever boss battle, it's stellar. Just like my sense of humor. 40. Baby Bowser Bunkers. There are tons of holes, out of which Baby Bowsers will keep popping. The players must stomp as many of them as they can, scoring 1 point for each. The player with the most points when time expires wins. I see this one as Whack-A-Plans from Mario Party 1 done right. It's not stupidly easy and doesn't have such a direct effect on boards, so it's much more balanced. And even by itself, it's fun. And getting to stomp the crap out of Baby Bowser? Yes, please. 39. Tidal Toss. The lone player in a boat must keep ground pounding to make waves, hoping to knock all 3 team players off the mountain. If they do so in the time limit, they win, but if at least 1 team player can survive the entire time, the team wins. I'll start with this. This one's fun, whether you're on the team or the lone player, but there's one small problem. In terms of fairness, it seems a bit skewed in the lone player's favor since they can make a lot of waves of different sizes, and on top of that, the team players move pretty slowly. So while it may be a bit unfair, how fun it is makes me like it a lot. 38. Pump Pumpin' Away, or basically a different version of Balloon Burst from Mario Party 2. Each team has their own rocket, which by pumping as fast as they can, must launch up in the sky. The team whose rocket flies the furthest wins. This one is nice and simple, but at the same time, frantic and very fun. And bonus, unlike Balloon Burst, this one has a more interesting concept. And so, for those reasons, I find it a little better than Balloon Burst. 37. Slapdown. Each player has their own giant hand fly swatter thing, and there are several mystery blocks which will start spinning, and the players must slap the button in the middle once one of the blocks shows the same kind of flower that it does. The player who does so first wins. This one takes intense focus and a really sharp reaction time, and also it's simple and nice. Not nice and simple, simple and nice. There's totally a difference, and the concept is decent. 36. Three-door Monty. There are 3 doors, but no Monty moles. I feel lied to, into which a Toad, a Koopa, and a Boo will each run in. The players must memorize which one went in which door. They'll then be asked where a certain one is, and the player to choose the right door the fastest wins. Just like Slapdown, this one requires keen focus and reaction time, but it also requires memory, which makes me like it a bit more than Slapdown, because, you know, I love memory testing games. Does memory serve on that? 35. Toadstool Titan. All 4 players are in an arena with several brick blocks, one of which contains a Mega Mushroom. The player who receives it must try to run into and eliminate as many of the other players as possible before the mushroom's effects wear off, at which point new blocks will respawn, with a new Mega Mushroom and a different one. The last player standing wins. This one is really fun, thrilling, and nerve-wracking, and... sorry, that's all I got. 34. Hand, line, and sinker. The team players are fish in a pond, and the lone player, using a hand fishing rod thing, weird, must cast out and try to reel in all 3 team players. If they do so in the time limit, they win, but if at least one team player can survive the entire time, the team wins. I'll be honest, for the lone player, this minigame kinda sucks. All they do is cast and reel, cast and reel, cast and reel, which isn't unfun per se, just kind of boring and tedious. But if you're a team player, it's so fun swimming around and avoiding the lone player's fishing hand. 33. River Raiders. The lone player in a shell boat and the team players, each on their own shell ski, are riding up a river with tons of coins, which, of course, they must try and grab. There are also logs to watch out for. This is a really unique coin cache since the lone player gets to choose the path and the team players have to follow along. But even despite that, it's perfectly fair since the lone player moves too slowly to be able to hog all the coins, which means there will be plenty left for the team players. Quite a clever, crackerjack coin cache, I cuss K. K, cut. 32. Vine with me. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to be George of the Jungle? If so, this is the minigame for you. Each player must swing from vine to vine, and the one who reaches the finish first is victorious. This one's really fun and sice and nimble, but even despite that, it's also a decent challenge. Unoriginal concept? Maybe, but who cares? If a minigame's fun and or challenging enough, it can have been conceptualized from Teen Titans Go for all I care. 31. Etch and Catch. Using giant crayons, each team must work together to draw circles around moving toad stamps. They'll score 1 point for each one with which they do so, and the team with the most points before time expires wins. This one is just fun and teamworky with a quite clever concept, and it can also be challenging at times. It is a bit slow-paced, but that's not always a bad thing. Some minigames actually benefit from having slow pacing, and this one's a prime example. 30. Cheep Cheep Chase. Here, you swim through a dungeon with a huge Cheep Cheep chasing you, hence the name. You also have to avoid spiky balls, and if you reach the finish first, you win. Now that I think about it, this one's kind of like a different version of Skateboard Scamper from Mario Party 1 and 2. You button mash to move along while having to avoid hazards. It's fun, intense, a good challenge, and has a quite epic concept. And bonus, it's not deceptively easy for it to be a tie. 29. Ice Rink Risk. This one takes place in an ice rink into which spiny shells will fall, and if one hits you, you're out. But if you can outlast the timer, or be the last one standing, you win. I'll be transparent, this one, at times, can feel a bit luck-based, but even despite that, it's really fun, a good challenge, especially with the ice physics, and an epic badass concept. The luck part does hold it back a bit, but even so, awesome minigame. 28. Mario's Puzzle Party. Here, you're pretty much playing Tetris, just stacking blocks of the same color together to clear them out and score points. If your stack gets too big, you lose, and the first one to reach 100 points wins. This one's just a basic puzzle game. The thwomps are a nice touch, but outside of that, it's basically just regular Tetris, so the concept is unoriginal, but even so, I enjoy Tetris, so logic dictates I enjoy this minigame. 27. Bounce and Trounce. Imagine bumper balls, but airborne. Each player has their own, pogo bouncy ball, I guess, and must keep bouncing, trying to knock their opponents over the edge. They can do so with a spin attack, and the last one bouncing is the winner. Though I slightly prefer bumper balls, well, at least Mario Party 2's version, this minigame is a really good, fun spin on it. Get it? And it's also a good challenge, since the platform keeps getting smaller and smaller. 26. Cosmic Coaster. The teams are riding huge coasters with a bunch of Bowser signs. They have to avoid the signs by moving left and right, since if you hit one, it'll slow you down. The first team to make it to the end wins. This one's nimble and sice, but at the same time keeps you on your toes and is therefore a decent challenge. I also like how it accommodates daredevils by having coins in risky places, and also how there's more pressure not to mess up, since if even one player hits a sign, it slows both teammates down. 25. Thwomp Pull. Both the lone player and team each have 3 thwomps pulling them on a sled, and they must push the correct button to move forward towards the finish line, and the first side to reach said finish line wins. And side note, watch out for snowballs. Another thing you should know by now is how much I love pushing buttons when playing video games, and this one is just plain fun with a somewhat interesting concept. Also, I don't care which side I'm on, and it's nice and simple. Just get used to it. 24. Hyper hydrants. Each team is face to face with a huge lava bubble which will keep spawning smaller ones. The teams, one teammate pumping water to a hose and the other aiming it, must extinguish as many bubbles as possible. The higher scoring team when time expires wins. This minigame, fun, intense, on toe keeping, teamworking, interesting concepts. I love all those things. I love hyper hydrants. I love Mario Party 3. I love the entire Mario Party series. I love the entire Mario series. I love Nintendo. I love video games. Wait, what was I talking about again? Oh, right, hyper hydrants. It's fire. I love bad puns. 23. Eats a pizza. Each team has one half of a pizza, which, of course, they must deliver. Just kidding. They have to eat it. You do so by button mashing, and the first team to lick their half of the plate clean wins. Or if neither does in the time limits, the one who wolfs down the most pizza wins. Everyone loves this minigame. Heck, some even deem it their favorite. But personally, I think it's overrated. Just a wee bit. But even so, I also think it's fun and frantic with a clever, funny concept. And who could forget? 22. The beat goes on. Several Shy Guys will start a musical riff, and each player, come their turn, must replicate that riff before adding their own note at the end. Any player to input an incorrect note loses, and the last player standing wins. This one tests memory, which is yet another thing you should know how much I love, and it also gets more and more challenging the more it progresses. The concept is just but a lot of the time, good concepts are just gravy, so it doesn't always matter if they're lackluster. 21. Curtain Call. A line of enemies will dance across a stage, and you have to pay attention to them, since once the curtain closes, Toad will ask you where in the line a certain one was. If you guess wrong even once, you're out, but if you guess correctly, you're safe, and if you can do so all 3 rounds, you win. Just like the beat goes on, this one takes good memory, but I slightly prefer it because although it also gets harder and harder as it progresses, there will never come a point where there's too much to memorize at one time, and for that reason, it's a bit more chill. 20. Dizzy Dinghies, or as I like to call it, water worlds done right. You're in your own boat and have to race across a long water course trying for a new record. You do have the same slippery controls that you have in water worlds, but here you have much more space. Well, mainly because it's a solo minigame, and more importantly, you get to race on a long track with more turns, which is much better than a short round one with multiple laps. 19. Logjam. Each team must stack logs, with one player placing them and the other chopping them. The team to chop the most logs in the time limit wins. No special concept here, but even so, it's really fun and takes good focus, because if you don't press the right button, it'll slow you down. Also, it's kind of funny how close the log placer has to get to the cutting point. I guess winning a minigame is worth risking getting decapitated. Also, it's nice and simple. Would you risk losing your head for me to stop saying that? 18. Crazy Cogs. The team players are running on a gear in the midst of a bullet bill onslaught. The lone player can change the cog's spin direction, and if all 3 team players get hit by bullet bills, the lone player wins. But if at least one team player can survive the whole time, the team wins. Whether you're on the team or the lone player, this minigame is a blast. For the lone player, super fun. For the team, super on toe keeping. And for everybody, super thrilling. And the concept is pretty unique. Crazy Cogs is a crazy good time. 17. Coconut Conk. The lone player's rolling around in a barrel, okay, under several coconut trees. And the team, atop said trees, must keep ground pounding to make the coconuts fall down. If any of them hit the lone player, the team wins. But if the lone player can survive until time's up, they win. This one's kind of the opposite of Crazy Cogs. Very fun for the team, very on toe keeping for the lone player, and very fun for everyone. And the concept is kind of funny. 16. Parasol Plummet. Each player has a parasol, I think, I could be wrong, with which they must get coins and avoid hammers, all thrown by Hammer Bros. Oh, make up your minds, dude! This one can kind of be seen as an airborne version of Hammer Drop from Mario Party 1. It's a coin cache in which you have to avoid hammers, but instead of running and jumping, you ascend and descend by opening and closing your parasol. I'm not sure if I like this one more than Hammer Drop, but no matter what, the point is, it's really fun, so I like it a lot. 15. Locked Out. This one takes place in a mansion with several rooms. To proceed to the next one, you have to grab a key. But the problem is there's always one less key and door than there are players, so if you don't get one, you lose. And of course, the last one standing wins. But if all your opponents get the keys before you do, it's not the end of the world. You can punch opponents, which makes them drop their keys. A fighting minigame. How smashing. Its concept, okay, I guess. But it's just fun. Really fun. And that's good enough for my liking. 14. Pipe Cleaners. Each player with a hammer is surrounded by 4 pipes, out of which baby Bowsers will keep popping, and you have to, well, you know, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it might be hitting them with your hammers. And I'm also pretty sure the player who does so the most before time is up wins. And something tells me this minigame might be really fun and on toe keeping, and there's a teeny tiny chance it might have a kind of funny concept, I think. Yeah, that all seems to add up. 13. Puddle Paddle. Here, the teams row in a puddle into which a hammer bro will keep throwing coins. And hammers, of course. And of more course, you want to get the coins and dodge the hammers. This is a really fun 2-on-2 coin cache. The concept is, again, just decent. But again, it's very fun. And again, if a minigame's fun enough, it doesn't matter how good or bad its concept is. And again, thrilling. And again, on toe keeping. And again, Oh, not again. 12. Rockin' Raceway. Think of like a carousel race, if that makes sense. You're riding a fake horse, and by button mashing, must race to the finish line in hopes of being the first one to get there. If you do so, you win. But if you mash too fast, you'll run out of stamina, which will slow you down. So be sure to pace yourself. I know I've said I'm not typically a fan of games where you have to pace yourself, but honestly, how fun this one is makes that not matter. It also kind of requires good timing if you want to get the power-ups. Rockin' Raceway is rockin'! 11. Storm Chasers. Each player has their own potted piranha plant, which they must water by holding it under a moving rain cloud. The player whose piranha plant grows the most at the end wins. And side note, watch out for Monty Moles. Since you're always brawling to stay under the cloud, this one is super fun, thrilling, and intense, and with the Monty Moles on toe keeping. And the concept, unique and original. I'm not sure what else to say. This is an all-around top-notch minigame. Short, sweet, and to the point. 10. Pop Gun Pickoff. There's a house with a bunch of windows, out of which baby Bowsers will keep looking. The players using pop guns must keep shooting them. Each successful hit is worth 1 point, and the player with the most points when time is up wins. Shooting games, I do love them so, especially rapid-fire ones. And what makes it even better is that you can't be trigger-happy, since toads can also appear, and if you shoot them, you'll lose points. So it also takes good focus. This has to be one of the best shooting minigames in the entire Mario Party series. 9. All Fired Up. All 4 players are in an arena with several lava bubbles who will move around and make different formations. Any player to get hit by one loses, and the last player standing wins. This one is fun, thrilling, on-toe keeping, nerve-wracking, and even somewhat challenging, with a both epic and original concept. Every time I play it, it gets me all fired up. And my sense of humor and comedy's totally fire, right? 8. Treadmill Grill. You're fighting atop treadmills overrun with lava bubbles. You heard right, I said fighting. Players must try to punch each other into a lava bubble. If you do touch one, you lose, and the last one standing wins. But these treadmills, man, they're the most erratic, indecisive things in the universe. They keep changing speed, changing direction, and shrinking, all of which will make it harder for you to keep your footing. Like I've strongly established, I'm loco for fighting games. And throw in twists like unstable platforming, and you've got yourself one kick-ass minigame. And the concept, epic. 7. Awful Tower. Each player has their own tower, up which they must climb by jumping from moving block to moving block. The first player to reach the top of their tower wins. Despite the name Awful Tower, this doesn't seem so bad, right? Well, there are tons of Lakitu wannabes, Hammer Bros and Clouds, who will try to disrupt your progress. So with that, this one's really on toe keeping. And let's not forget, it's a racing game, so it's also very fun. The concept isn't really noteworthy, but no matter. Awful Tower? More like Awesome Tower. 6. Boulder Ball. The team players are running up a hill, and the lone player must keep them at bay by launching boulders at them. The boulders can also be angled so that they'll ricochet off the walls, making it harder for the team players to avoid them. And if a team player gets hit by one of said boulders, they'll fall down the hill a good bit. If even one team player can make it to the top of the hill before time expires, the team wins, but if not, the lone player wins. This minigame is very thrilling, with a pretty clever, and even more so, funny concept. Also, side note, I prefer to be on the team. Boulder Ball is on the ball. 5. Foul Play. You're just in a small farm chasing a chicken, and the first one to catch it wins. I'll just get this out of the way. This concept is alright, but not super special. But that's the only mad thing about it. Otherwise, it's amazing. Fun, frantic, and unique. Unique in that there aren't many other minigames like this. And that's it. Nice and simple. And nice and simpleness lives rent-free in my head. I will say, the camera can be a bit uncooperative at times, but even still, I love Foul Play. I actually think it's kind of underrated. 4. Tick-Tock Hop. The players, standing on the hour hand of a clock, must keep jumping to avoid getting hit by the minute hand. If it does hit you, you lose, and the last one standing wins. Now, you might already know what I like about this one. It's fun, frantic, on toe keeping, has a unique and interesting concept, but there is one thing that sets it apart from a lot of other minigames. The hands keep speeding up, which means it keeps getting harder and harder, and there's more. This minigame has no timer, which means there's no chance for a tie. That's right, no getting saved by the bell here. Isn't it clear? This minigame has a bunch of great things about it. I'm gonna go rave about it on TikTok, cause what better place, right? 3. Snowball Summit. This minigame is, in a nutshell, the ultimate snowball fight. It takes place atop a snowy mountain, and you have to make snowballs, walk around to build them up, then roll them at your opponents. The bigger the snowball, the further it launches players it hits, and also the slower it makes the owner move around. And if you get knocked off the mountain, you lose, and the last one standing wins. Right behind Eats a Pizza, this is Mario Party 3's most iconic minigame. Everybody knows and loves it, and for good reason. It's a ton of fun, totally intense, and the concept is pretty cool. No pun intended. That should sum it all up. Yes, pun intended. 2. Ridiculous Relay. The lone players hang gliding and must dodge paragaloomba's, God is that a fun word to say, and bullet bills, and each team player has their own aquatic vehicle, all of which require different button controls to operate. If the lone player crosses the finish line first, he or she wins, but if the team's anchor does so, the team wins. Let's get the obvious out of the racing games. Yeah, you saw it coming, but this one's a really unique type of racing game. It's a 1v3 for starters, and also each character has a different thing to do. Or more simply put, the concept is very clever and innovative. Ridiculous Relay, more like really cool relay. Ugh. 1. Aces High. Just observe this minigame for a second. Can't you tell just by looking at it how awesome it must be? It's a dogfight, for God's sake. You fly your own fighter plane and must shoot cannonballs at opponents. You can also launch bullet bills, which are heat seekers. Get hit twice and you're done, and the last player standing, or should I say, flying, wins it. Obvious. Shooting games, you knew it, but this type of shooting game? Extremely epic! It's an aerial rapid-fire one. Talk about one of a kind. Or, in simpler terms, epic, badass, kick-ass concept. I won't say it's original or innovative since Star Fox exists, but concepts don't always have to be original for me to like them. It's just a nice bonus. And this minigame is proof of that. If I had to describe it in one word, I'd say perfect. And for all that, Aces High is easily my #1 favorite Mario Party 3 minigame. It aces the test. And no sooner would I ace a comedy test. So there you have it, my ranking of every Mario Party 3 minigame. For more videos like this, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Also, please check out my social media. All links are in the description. A triple thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Mikoro out.